with some grammar. Then we're going to be getting into a listening activity. And lastly, we have our elective, which I believe is a reading activity from Breaking News English. All right, guys. So as usual, we have a lot of content, actually more than we can realistically deal with. But we'll try our best here. But how are you guys this morning? Okay, great. Well, I'm doing pretty good. I got more sleep than I usually do. So I'm feeling kind of fresh. Yeah, so that's good. And my daughters seem pretty happy. So yeah, I'm doing all right. Okay, guys, so what you guys should do is take a look at this information here. And it says reported speech. Now, I know if you look through this entire package, there are simply too many pages. I think there are about 10 pages. Whoa, actually no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, no, about 10 pages, and then there's also an activity. The activity we will definitely not have time for. But what I think I'm going to do with you guys is kind of go over reported speech, not in extreme detail, because it would be impossible to go over everything here. But we'll see how this goes. So now, before we get started, of course, everybody knows what reported speech is. And reported speech can be broken into two different types of reported speech, right? So let's talk about that briefly. Reported speech. And we can divide it into two. 1 and 2. So what can we divide reported speech into? Well, we can divide it into direct and indirect reported speech, right? So we've got direct speech and we have indirect speech. And kind of a simple way to think about this is related to those gestures that I just used, actually. Direct speech and then indirect speech. When you use direct speech to report what somebody said, you just quote what the person directly said to you. So if John told me, if John said, "I am sick," and then he goes home. And later I see my colleague Paul. And Paul says, "Hey, where is John?" And I want to report what John said directly. I could simply say, "He said he is sick." And that's it. I give them a direct copy of what he said, right? Or he said, "I am sick." Right? Sorry, I should have said "I am" because he said "I am sick," right? Anyhow, but usually when we're speaking and we're reporting what somebody said, we don't use direct speech so often. We generally tend to use indirect speech, right? So actually, I already gave you guys a copy or an example of something before, but let me write this down briefly as an example. So John says, right, "I am sick." And then Paul says, "Where is John?" Okay, so I gave you the example of direct speech, and I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to write down me. John said, "I am sick." Of course, this is an example of direct speech. Now, so when you're reporting what somebody said, you basically have two options, right? You could report what they said directly or indirectly. However, like I said, generally speaking in conversation, we will report what somebody said in an indirect way. So, of course, we could say John said, "I am sick." And this is a direct copy of what John exactly said, right? But if we're going to report it indirectly, we could just say John said, and then that is optional, that he was sick. So, and this is indirect speech. Okay, so you can definitely notice some differences here between when you report something directly and when you report something indirectly, of course, right? Again, when you're reporting something directly, it's just a basic copy, copy and paste of what the person said exactly, right? Now, when you're reporting something indirectly, of course, it's the same content, but you're not saying it in the exact same way, right? So this one here says, John said, so that's kind of similar, but actually you'll notice there's no comma here, and that's kind of important. But anyhow, John said, and then that is optional. For me, I actually prefer to, even though this is optional, I generally use that anyhow. I guess I'm just kind of used to it. And I think it's a good idea to use that even though it is optional and not necessary. But I think it sounds better. Anyhow, John said that he was sick. So something different about this one here, of course, is that you do need to report using he, of course, because we're referring to John. And also, we're not going to be using it in the present tense. You have to change the verb tense to the past tense. Anyhow, guys, pretty simple stuff so far, but reported speech can get a lot more difficult than this. So let's read over some of the stuff here and look at some examples and maybe do some of the exercises, right? So let's take a look at the introduction here. It says, of course, there are two ways of relating what a person has said, like I said before, direct and indirect. In direct speech, we repeat the original speaker's exact words. He said, I have lost my umbrella. Okay. Now, remarks thus repeated are placed between inverted commas, and a comma is placed immediately before the remark. And we're talking about this here, right? Direct speech is found in conversations, in books, in plays, and in quotations. In indirect speech, we give the exact meaning of a remark or a speech without necessarily using the speaker's exact words. So, like this example here. It's the same content, it has the same meaning, but it's not just a copy and paste of what John exactly said, right? Now, their example here is he said that he had lost his umbrella. Okay. It says there's no comma after say in indirect speech. That can usually be omitted after say and tell plus object. So like I said before, that can be omitted. It can be removed. But personally, I prefer to continue to use that. But it should be kept after other verbs, such as complain, explain, object, point out, protest, etc. Indirect speech is normally used when conversation is reported verbally, though direct speech is sometimes here to give a more dramatic effect. Okay, yeah, and actually this is really important because a lot of people don't exactly know, like, hey, when do I use direct speech and when do I use indirect speech? And it's important to know when you would want to use these, right? So I think in general, when you're using direct speech, most of the time when you're using this is when you are like writing a play or in a book or something like that, or like you're quoting somebody directly, you're going to use direct speech. Can you use direct speech in conversation to report what somebody has said? Yes, you can. However, that is generally used, like it says here, to make a more dramatic effect. Generally speaking, when we are talking to somebody else and we are having a conversation and we are reporting what somebody else said, we are going to be using indirect speech and not so much direct speech, right? Now, when we turn direct speech into indirect, some changes are usually necessary. Actually, yes, there are a lot of changes when we change direct speech into indirect speech. One of the tips I can kind of give you now is that in general, if anything was said in like the present tense in direct speech, generally you're going to switch it to the past tense when it comes to indirect speech. But let's look at some of those changes. So we got pronouns and adjectives, changes necessary. Okie dokie. So in A here it says, first and second person pronouns and possessive adjectives normally change to the third person except when the speaker is reporting his or her own words. So I becomes he, she or me becomes him, her or my becomes his. Oh, sorry. Me becomes him or her, my becomes his or her, mine equals his or hers, we equals they, etc., etc., etc. So we have some examples here. The two examples, you have the direct speech on the left and the indirect speech on the right. She said, he is my son. Okay, so that is directly what she said, right? She said, he is my son. When we change this to indirect speech, we say, she said that he was her son. So, pretty big difference here, and it obviously makes sense, right? She said, he's my son. She said that he was her son. Okie dokie, that makes sense. So take a look at the next one. Now, the next one is actually pretty similar to the example I wrote on the board here, but I am ill, she said. Okay. Now, when we change this to indirect speech, the person is saying, she said that she was ill. So you'll notice some major differences here, right? With the pronoun, but also with some other stuff here. She said that she was ill. So you'll notice the person said, I am ill, present tense. But you also, with indirect speech, you change it to the past tense. She said that she was ill, right? Okay. Now, moving on to B, we've got this and these. And this can get a little bit confusing. But anyhow, it says, this used in time expressions usually becomes that. So I think a simple rule to keep in mind is when it comes to direct speech, if somebody says this, when you're converting the sentence into indirect speech, change this to that. So we've got, she said, and direct quote, she is coming this week. When we change this into indirect speech, we will say, she said that she was coming that week. Okay, that's a little bit confusing, but it's not a difficult rule to keep in mind. And it also says this and that, when they're used as adjectives, usually change to the. Okay, he said, I bought this pearl, or these pearls, for my mother. Oh, what a nice son, buying pearls for his mom. Anyhow, must be kind of rich. He said that he had bought the pearl or the pearls for his mom. So in this case, we're changing this pearl or these pearls in direct speech into the pearl or the pearls in indirect speech. But you'll also notice here another good change here. Like, of course, he said, I bought, right? When we're changing this into indirect speech, we're saying he said that he had bought. So again, we're kind of changing this to a past tense form. Anyhow, after that, we've got this and these used as pronouns can become it or they or them. So our example here is, he came back with 2 knives and said, wow, that's weird, I found these beside the king's bed. Now, in indirect speech, he said he had found them beside the king's bed. So instead of saying these, we should just say he said he had found them, right? Our second example here, he said, direct quote, we will discuss this tomorrow. When we're changing this into indirect speech, we'll say, he said that they would discuss it, and it being the matter, the issue, the problem, whatever it is, the next day. So this is also another kind of tough one, but with direct speech here, the direct quote, we will discuss this tomorrow. He said that they would discuss it tomorrow. So even though we're talking about doing something in the future, they will discuss it in the future. When you change it into indirect speech, you have to change that verb tense. You're changing will, and you're turning that into would, right? They said they would discuss it, and it being this issue. We will discuss this issue, the matter, whatever it is, the next day. And that's another important change. Instead of saying tomorrow, we're saying the next day. Now, I should also note here that for a lot of Canadians and Americans, when it comes to expressions of time and this kind of stuff, there is a big difference when it comes to expressions of time between direct and indirect speech that we should follow. Like tomorrow becomes the next day, for example. Is this really important to do? Not so much. If you're speaking to somebody and you're reporting someone's speech indirectly and you use terms like today or tomorrow or whatever, it's not a big issue. However, you're not supposed to do that, right? So let's look at the exact rule. But I just want you guys to keep in mind that nobody really cares too much about this. And if you make a mistake concerning this, you know, you're not going to get in big trouble, or people are not going to laugh at you and think you're a loser or something like that, right? Anyhow, so let's look at expressions of time and place in indirect speech. So we have here adverbs and adverbial phrases of time change as follows. So this is a very handy, very handy list, right? And handy, that's a good word. Well, handy can have two meanings, actually. One of them is very negative. But handy is an adjective, and if something is handy, it is pretty useful, right? Like, what do I have at home that's very handy? Oh, my sister and brother bought me an Instant Pot. Supposedly, it is very handy. It's a kind of special pot that you can use to cook a lot of things. Actually, I haven't used it very much, but I've heard that it's handy. Anyhow, so handy is useful, but whatever. So this is a very handy list here, right? Would it be easy to memorize all these things? Yeah, it's not too bad. But like I said before, it's not crucial that you memorize this stuff here. So we've got direct speech and then we've got indirect speech. So something like today becomes that day. Yesterday becomes the day before. The day before yesterday becomes 2 days before. Tomorrow is the next day or the following day. The day after tomorrow is in 2 days' time. Next week, next year, etc. The following week, the following year. Last week, last year, etc. The previous week, the previous year. And there's a bit more, but my copy cut it off and I can't see it. So that's too bad. But anyhow, you guys can kind of see what's happening here. Yeah, this is a handy list, it really is, but like I said before, when converting something like a direct quote into indirect speech, is it crucial that you follow this? I would say no, not 100% crucial. Does it sound better if you do? Yes, it sounds much better and it sounds like you know what you're talking about, but nobody's really gonna nail you to the cross if you don't get this correct, right? Anyhow, so on the next page, guys, we've got some good examples. Direct speech here, it says, I saw her the day before yesterday, he said. So there's a direct quote. So when we're converting this into indirect speech, he said he had, or he'd, seen her 2 days before. So instead of saying the day before yesterday, which is, 2 days ago, we're changing it to 2 days before. Okay, I'll do it tomorrow. He promised. Okay, direct speech. Our indirect speech quote is, he promised that he would do it the next day. So instead of saying tomorrow, we've got the next day. She said, my father died a year ago. Ooh, it's a pretty morbid example. Anyhow, the indirect example here is, she said that her father had died a year before, or had died the previous year. Ooh, dark. Anyhow, guys, so you can see those changes with those time expressions there. Is it useful? Yeah. Extremely useful? No. Anyhow, with B here it says, but if the speech is made and reported on the same day, these time changes are not necessary. So this is an important point. At breakfast this morning, he said, I'll be very busy today. So this person said this at breakfast, and he said directly, I'll be very busy today. When we convert this into indirect speech, we don't have to make any major changes. At breakfast this morning, he said that he would be very busy today. Okay, so just keep in mind, if the speech is made and reported on this very same day, you don't have to change the time expression, right? And that is an important point. Anyhow, C here says, here can become there, but only when it is clear what place is meant. Okay. At the station, he said, direct quote, I'll be here again tomorrow. Okay. Now, converting this into indirect speech, we have, he said that he'd be there again the next day. Okay. And usually here has to be replaced by some phrase. She said, you can sit here, Tom. She told Tom that he could sit beside her. So with this one here, you can sit here, Tom. When you're reporting it indirectly, what is here? You might not be in the same place at the time. So you have to replace here with something else. And the person decided to replace it with beside her because it was here was beside her, right? And it just makes sense. That's a little bit tricky, right? But you just have to keep in mind where was here. You have to relate it in a different way. Okay. All right, guys. Moving on, though, we have statements in indirect speech, tense changes, which are necessary, right? So this is kind of going back to changing the tense, the verb tense. And this stuff is actually really important when you are reporting something indirectly. This is actually crucial. Okay, so in A here, it says indirect speech can be introduced by a verb in a present tense. He says that, for example. This is usual when we are reporting a conversation that is still going on, right? Reading a letter and reporting what it says. Reading instructions and reporting them. So we're reading instructions and reporting them to somebody else. And D, reporting a statement that someone makes very often, right? Somebody says something really often, and we are relaying that or relating that to another person. You don't have to change the present tense into a different tense. For example, Tom says that he'll never get married. Wow, this is like my sister. My sister keeps telling my mom that she will never get married. So in that case, when I'm talking about what my sister says indirectly, I do not need to change the verb tense. My sister says that she'll never get married. It makes my mom very sad. Anyhow, when the introductory verb is in a present perfect, or future tense, we can report the direct speech without any change of tense. Okay, now this is useful. Now the example here says Paul, and it says phoning from the station. I'm trying to get a taxi. And to Mary, who is standing beside her. So Anne is reporting to Mary what Paul said, but she's going to be doing it indirectly. You could say, Paul says he is trying to get a taxi. So in this case, we didn't have to change the verb tense because the conversation is occurring at the same time. It's not the next day, it's not later that evening or whatever. Okay, let's take a look at B here. It says, but indirect speech is usually introduced by a verb in the past tense, which is what I was saying earlier. Verbs in the direct speech have then to be changed into a corresponding past tense form. The changes are shown in the following table. Now, this table here, I would say, is very, very handy. It's very, very useful, right? This is much more crucial than the previous table we looked at with time expressions, right? Because like I said before, nobody cares too much if you mess up the time expression. Nobody really cares if you mess up the verb tense either. They're not going to get upset, but it will make the sentence you say sound kind of strange, right? It just doesn't really work. So let's take a look here. We have examples, and then we also have them in different tenses. So if somebody says something using the simple present, somebody says, I never eat meat. He explained. When we're changing this into indirect speech, you want to change this from the simple present to the simple past. He explained that he never ate meat. Wow, so sad, right? Anyhow, so simple present becomes simple past. Let's take a look at the present continuous. I am waiting for Anne. He said directly. So in indirect speech, you got to change the present continuous to the past the past continuous. Ooh, got kind of tongue-tied there. So the past continuous would be he said that he was waiting for Anne. So again, you're just kind of converting that into a past tense form. Present continuous becomes past continuous. Let's look at the present perfect. I have found a flat, he said. Now you might be wondering here, I found a flat. What is a flat, right? Usually in North American English, Canadian and American English, when we think flat, all we think about is a flat surface, right? But for people in England, I think also Australia, maybe New Zealand, South Africa, and Ireland, I think flat means apartment. So there you go. Anyhow, I have found a flat, he said. Now, if it's in the present perfect, present perfect, we must convert it into the past perfect. So again, just change it to the past tense form of that tense, right? So instead of saying, I have found a flat, he said, when you're reporting it indirectly, you'll say, he said that he had found a flat. Ding, 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 and there you go. Okay, moving on to a more difficult verb tense, we have the present perfect continuous. He said, I've been waiting for ages. And that's a very common expression in English. I have been waiting for ages. Somebody says, I have been waiting for ages. They're really trying to emphasize or exaggerate the fact that they have been waiting for a long time. Anyhow, if we're going to report what this person said indirectly, we're going to change the present perfect continuous into the past perfect continuous. So, he said that he had been waiting for ages. Ding, 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 and there we go. So far, we're going to continue with this table here, but so far, as you can see, any verb tense, or most verb tenses, you just change it into the past form of that verb tense. So let's look at the next one. We've got something directly reported in the simple past. I took it home with me, she said. This one is a little bit more complicated. The simple past will become the past perfect. So we'll have, she said that he had taken it home with her. Okay, awesome. Moving on for the future, right? He said, I will or I shall be in Paris on Monday. Now, one thing kind of that I should look at here with you guys, like I will go to Paris or I will be in Paris on Monday. For a North American English speaker in Canada, States, like, of course, this is totally fine. If somebody said, I shall be in Paris on Monday, shall, okay, so shall is an interesting term, right? I think shall is much more commonly used by English speakers in the United Kingdom, maybe also Australia, maybe also New Zealand. But shall is not so commonly used by English speakers in Canada and America. You can use it here. People will, maybe in the US, people might not understand you actually, depending on where you are in the United States. People will understand you, but it's just not commonly used here. Usually when Canadians or Americans use shall, I think most of the time when we're using it, which is really not common, we are just pretending to be British when we are using shall. We are making some kind of joke, or we are pretending to be polite using shall, right? Shall we go? Shall we attend the party? Shall I go home now? Usually, like I just demonstrated there, we're using it as a joke. Anyhow, so just keep that in mind, though. That's kind of important if you're living in the United States or Canada. Don't use shall too much. People will really think you're from the UK, or maybe they won't even understand you, actually. Anyhow, getting back to the future here for the direct speech. When we're converting a direct speech quote where somebody is using the future tense, we're going to change that when it comes to indirect speech into a conditional, right? So instead of saying will, we're going to say he said that he would be in Paris on Monday, right? So that's not too hard. Will becomes would. And then after that, we've got future continuous tense in the direct speech form. I will be using the car myself on the 24th. I will be using the car myself on the 24th. I think it was supposed to say 24th, but instead it just says H. Let's say 24th. She said. Now, when we're converting this into indirect speech, we're going to take it and change the future continuous into a conditional continuous form. So she said that she'd been using the car herself on the 24th. Yes, 24th. Okay, good. So in the conditional continuous example, it does have TH. Okay, so I was right. It's not 24H. Anyhow, guys, last one we have here, a conditional sentence. I said I would like to see it. I said that I would like to see it. And that's pretty simple. Okay, guys, so we got all that done. And it says all these changes represent the distancing effect of the reported speech. Common sense together with the time aspect from the speaker's point of view are more important than the rules when making the usual changes. Okay, now so far we haven't talked about making questions in indirect speech, so let's take a look at that here. Direct question. He said, where is she going? Now indirectly, using indirect speech, you want to say, he asked where she was going, right? So of course we've got, he said, where is she going? So instead of she, well, no, we're still using she. But instead of using is, of course, we're changing that to was, so just switch it to the past tense form. Now, when we turn direct questions into indirect speech, the following changes are necessary. So these rules are important. A, tenses, pronouns, and possessive adjectives and adverbs of time and place change as in statements. Okay. B, the interrogative form of the verb changes to the affirmative form. And C, the question mark is omitted in indirect questions. Okay, now that's an important rule when you are writing, right? So if you're writing a question in indirect speech and you're writing it down, you have to remember, do not include the question mark. Okay. Now, B here says, if the introductory verb is say, it must be changed to a verb of inquiry, of question. So say must be changed to things like ask, wonder, want to know, etc. This is important. Now let's look at an example here. In indirect speech, he said, where is the station? Right? Now we cannot use say or said when we are reporting this indirectly. Instead, because he asked a question, the easiest thing to do is just use the verb ask, right? So indirectly, you could just say, he asked where the station was, right? In C here it says, ask can be followed by the person addressed, as in an indirect object. He asked, what have you got in your bag? Indirectly, he asked me what I had got in my bag. Now it's important to note here also, when it comes to wonder and want to know, but wonder and want to know cannot take an indirect object. So if we wish to report a question where the person addressed is mentioned, we must use ask. Okay, so he said, Mary, when is the next train? He asked Mary when the next train was. Okay, not too complicated, right? D, if the direct question begins with a question word, when, where, who, how, why, etc., the question word is repeated in the indirect question. Okay, he said, why didn't you put on the brake? He asked her why she hadn't put on the brake. Okay, and also she said, what do you want? She asked them what they wanted. Okay, and E, if there is no question word, if or whether must be used. Is anyone there? He asked. He asked if or he asked whether anyone was there. Okay, guys, now I know I went over this kind of quickly, and I went over this kind of quickly because there's just too much content here. But this stuff, again, this is really, really useful. I highly recommend taking the time later and reading over and reviewing this stuff and maybe making up your own examples, right? But anyhow, let's continue onwards here. We have commands, requests, and advice in indirect speech. Okay, so first we have an example of a direct command. He said, "Lie down, Tom." Indirect command. He told Tom to lie down. Not so bad, right? Now, indirect commands, indirect requests, indirect advice are usually expressed by a verb of command, request, advice, plus object, plus infinitive. Okay, so what kind of verbs are we talking about? Well, we've got a list here, which is also a handy list. The following verbs can be used: advise, ask, beg, command, order, remind, tell, warn, etc. Okay, so let's look at a direct speech example. He said, "Get your coat, Tom." Okay, now indirectly, he told Tom to get his coat. Ooh, he told Tom. Wow, so rude, right? Anyhow, B, negative commands, requests, etc. are usually reported by not plus the infinitive. So, direct speech, "Don't swim out too far, boys," I said. And then if we're reporting this indirectly, "I warned." So they're going to choose to use warn because in this case it was a warning, right? I warned, or I warned the boys not to swim out too far. Okay, guys, so that's a pretty handy list. You know, the list of verbs here that you could use for reporting a command or reporting a request or advice in indirect speech. Advise, ask, beg, command, order, remind, tell, warn, and there are a few others. Anyhow, but let's move on to exclamations in indirect speech. So it says exclamations usually become statements in indirect speech. The exclamation mark, of course, disappears, just like the question mark disappears when you're reporting a question in indirect speech. So let's take a look here. In A, it says explanations beginning what or how can be reported by, and we'll take a look here, exclaim or say that. Okay, so our example here for direct speech is, he said, "What a dreadful idea," right? Exclamation mark, "What a dreadful idea." Or, "How dreadful." Okay, again with an exclamation mark. Now, remember, you don't want to use that exclamation mark when you're reporting what the person said indirectly, right? Why am I moving my hand so much? Anyhow, so our example of the indirect form would be, he exclaimed that it was a dreadful idea, or it was dreadful. Okay, so in this case, this is not that complicated. You're just removing the exclamation mark here, right? The other important thing to note here is, of course, you could say, he said that, right? But if you really want to emphasize that the person was exclaiming something, exaggerating something, using an exclamation mark, you'll just want to use the verb exclaim. He exclaimed that, right? Okay, now it says here, give an exclamation of delight, disgust, horror, relief, surprise, etc. If the exclamation is followed by an action, we can use the construction with an exclamation of delight or disgust or whatever it is, plus he or she plus verb. Now that looks really, really complex, but it's not as hard as you think. So on the backside here, so other types of exclamations such as good, marvelous, splendid, heavens, oh, ugh, etc. can be reported as in B or C above. Okay, now, let's take a quick look here. This is not that hard. Good, he exclaimed. So all he said directly was good with an exclamation mark. He give, this is pretty tough actually. Indirectly you would say he gave an exclamation, so he gave an exclamation of pleasure, or satisfaction, right? So all of that is used to explain that he exclaimed, good, right? Now, take a look at the next one. We have ugh. Now, U-G-H, ugh, 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 right? Ugh usually means something negative, right? Like ugh, like ew, gross, right? Anyhow, ugh, she exclaimed and turned the program off. I guess she saw somebody on TV that she didn't like. Anyhow, when you're reporting this indirectly with an exclamation of disgust, she turned the program off. Okay, now guys, both of these examples here are pretty damn difficult to be really, really honest here. It would take a lot of practice to get used to this. My kind of advice is you should try to say it like this if you're reporting what somebody exclaimed indirectly in a conversation. You should try to say it like that. But honestly, this is pretty tough. If you want to report what somebody said when they were exclaiming something, when they were like, oh, good, splendid, wow, marvelous, maybe the easier choice, of course, would just to be report what they said directly. He said, marvelous, right? You can try to use the indirect form, but like you can see, it's pretty tough. I recommend trying to do that, but don't freak out too much if you can't really remember how to say this. Anyhow, it says here in C, note also, he said thank you becomes he thanked me. He said good luck. He wished me luck, or he wished me good luck. He said happy Christmas. He wished me a happy Christmas. He said congratulations. He congratulated me. He said liar. He called me a liar. He said damn. He swore. That one's important. Damn, or shit, or some kind of bad word. If somebody's using a swear word and you're going to report that indirectly, you just say he swore. Swear is an important word, right? Swear can mean to make a solemn promise. I swear to defend the Constitution of the United States, or whatever, right? But swear can also mean to use bad language. Actually, swear is such a useful verb and word. Whoops, that's kind of silly. To swear, but just remember, swear, it is a noun and, well, it is a verb, but it has two different meanings, right? The more formal meaning of swear is to make a promise, like a deep promise, a solemn promise, but the other version of swear, it just means to use bad language, and then swear means to use swear words. Swear words are bad words, dirty words. So dirty. Anyhow, the notice said, welcome to Wales. The notice welcomed visitors to Wales. Okay. And also here it says yes and no in indirect speech. We say yes and no are expressed in indirect speech by subject plus appropriate auxiliary verb. Okay. He said, can you swim? And I said no. He asked me if I could swim, and I said I couldn't. He said, will you have time to do it? And I said yes. He asked if I would have time to do it, and I said that I would, right? So, is this kind of complicated? It's not too bad, but when you're using something in direct speech, when you're going to say no or yes in direct speech, if you're converting that into indirect speech, it has to change to the subject plus an appropriate auxiliary verb. Okay, and when it comes to offers and suggestions in indirect speech, let's take a look. So we have an example of an offer. Shall I bring you some tea? Could be reported, he offered to bring me some tea. Or a suggestion. Shall we meet at the theater? Could be reported, he suggested meeting at the theater. So that part's not too tough. All right, guys, and indirect speech mixed types. Says here, direct speech may consist of statement plus question, question plus command, command plus statement, or all three together. Normally, each requires its own introductory verb. And we have some more examples here. Oh my God, we're running out of time already. Okay, But let's look at an example really quick. I don't know the way. Do you? He asked. Okay, so there's our direct speech. In an indirect way, he said he didn't know the way and asked her if she did or if she knew it. Okay, our second example, he said, someone is coming, get behind the screen. Indirectly, he said that someone was coming and told me to get behind the screen. Okay, now we got reported speech and some other points here. Okay, this is good because, yeah, we're kind of running out of time. Anyhow, some other important things to note here in A, must. After a past reporting verb, must does not usually change. Okay, so you don't need to change must. So, he said, I must be pretty tired. I really must go. Okay. In indirect speech, he said that it must be pretty late and he really must go. Did I say tired before? Anyhow, no. Anyhow, after that, guys, we had to is also possible in reported speech, but this is really the past of have to, not must. Okay. So he said, I have to go. I have an appointment in half an hour. Indirectly, he said that he had to go because he had an appointment in half an hour. Okay. Now, when it comes to modal verbs, past modal verbs like could, might, ought to, should, ought to is not very commonly used here, but anyhow, should, used to, etc., they do not normally change in reported speech. Okay, so that's kind of another easy rule to keep in mind. You don't really have to change them. He said, I might come. He said that he might come. He said, I would help him if I could. He said that he would help him if he could. Again, you don't change could. He said, you needn't wait. He said that I needn't wait. Need not wait. Needn't. Again, people in Canada and the United States, we will understand this, but we don't really use this so often ourselves. Okay, but moving on with some other things here. Okay. With conditionals in C, conditional sentences type 2 remain unchanged. So the second conditional, you don't really have to change. He said, if my children were older, I would emigrate. He said that if his children were older, he would emigrate. And emigrate means to leave your country, go to another country, and hope to live there, right? Okay, guys, now we do have some more stuff here. We're almost done the study portion of this package, and then it gets on to the exercises. I think, guys, what I'm going to do, though, is I think I'm going to stop here with this reported speech stuff right now. And I would like you guys to read the rest of this here and try out the exercises for practice, right? Now, unfortunately, we don't have an answer key for you guys, but I still think practicing or testing out some of this yourselves is a good use of time to help you become more familiar with reported speech, whether it's direct speech or indirect speech. So try that out. But we kind of ran out of time, so what we're going to do, guys, we'll take a break, and then after the break, we're going to be getting into our listening activity, and we're going to be talking about sad movies. So I hope I don't cry in the next class, right? Because, yeah, it'll be sad. Oh, I should have talked to you guys about the reported speech game board, but that's okay. Let's take a break first, and then I'll talk about the game board, which you could, or maybe you don't want to, but whatever, you can play it with somebody at home. Anyhow, guys, let's take a break, and I'll see you again in 10 minutes. online. If you're watching the first class, of course, you know my name is Allan. We went over reported speech in our first class. Like I said, unfortunately, I was not able to get all the material done, but I do think it's a good idea. If you guys have time, please review that sheet, go over it, and try the exercises. But one thing I did not have time to talk about, or actually, to be honest, I forgot to talk about it, is this one here. So take a look at this, guys. This is actually maybe kind of fun if you have somebody to play this with. And also, if you have a printer and some dice. Now, even if you don't have a printer and some dice, you could still play this. Just keep it on your desktop and then maybe, I don't know, use some virtual dice through Google or something like that. And this is all about practicing reported speech, right? And it says, what did you say? Now, they have an example here. It says, the person asked the original question, do you like watching TV? Then the second person, person B, says, what did you say? And then you have to report back what you said indirectly. I asked if you liked watching TV. Yes, I do. And then a follow-up question, what's your favorite TV channel? Okay, guys, so maybe take a look at the first square. Like if you rolled a 1, for example, you have the question, do you like going to the cinema? So if you rolled a 1 and you land on that one, your partner has to ask you, like, hey, do you like going to the cinema? Then you have to respond by saying, what did you say? Then your partner has to reword the question using reported speech. They have to say, I asked if you liked going to the cinema. So like becomes liked. Then you respond, honestly, like, do you like going to the cinema? Probably you do. So you say, yes, I do. Then the person can ask you, hopefully, a follow-up question. Now, related to going to the cinema. Maybe the question could be like, what kind of movies do you like to watch, right? Or what's your favorite movie of all time? Or something like that, and you give an answer. Okay. Or if you rolled a 2, you would get the question, what are you doing at the weekend? Okay, now keep in mind that this is British. So at the weekend is something people can say in the UK. But people don't say at the weekend here. So for North Americans, we won't say, what are you doing at the weekend? We'll say, what are you doing this weekend, right? Actually, I remember a Scottish coworker I had a couple of years ago. We were pretty good friends, and she had asked me to go to the bank with her. And she went up to the bank teller, and the bank teller was making some small talk with her. And my friend, my Scottish coworker, asked the bank teller, hey, what are you doing at the weekend? And the bank teller was like, what? What do you mean at the weekend? And she's like, oh, sorry, what are you doing this weekend? Anyhow, so it can cause confusion. But what you would do here, of course, is you would ask, what are you doing this weekend? Or your partner would ask you that. You respond by saying again, what did you say? And then after that, they have to reword it and say, I asked what you were doing this weekend, right? What are you going to do this weekend? And then you say, oh, and then you give your honest answer, what are you going to do this weekend? Oh, I'm going kayaking, or I'm going to the beach, or whatever it is. Okay, so guys, pretty interesting one. If you have the time, if you have a partner, you could do this together. It could be kind of fun. But let's move on to what we're actually supposed to be doing in this class, and that is our listening activity. So hopefully this is kind of fun. Our topic is sad movies, right? Now, I'm actually trying to think of some quick examples of a sad movie. I can't really think of any off the top of my head. Oh my God, I guess I don't watch a lot of movies these days. But in number 1 for our warm-up activities, we have 1, movies. Do you enjoy watching movies? Well, for me, of course, right? Garcia Machado likes go. Oh, okay, that's great. Anyhow, do you like watching movies? Okay, yes, I do. I do like watching movies, like a lot of other people. I do like watching movies. I'm sure many of you guys do too. If you don't like watching movies, I think that's pretty interesting. But anyhow, what genres are your favorites? Okay, now that word. Oh, hey, Brian. Hey, thanks. I appreciate that. Anyhow, we'll continue here. What genres are your favorites? What genres? Now, that word can be hard for people to pronounce correctly, right? Genre. Because the word genre is actually not an English word. It's actually French. That's why the pronunciation can be difficult for people. And remember, genre just means like kind of or type of maybe music, movie, book, whoops, what am I doing here? Etc. So if we're talking about a kind of book or type of book, movie, music, etc., we can use genre. What genre of music do you like? What genre of movies do you like, etc.? Now for me personally, what genre of movies do I like? I think my favorite is probably historical movies or historical dramas. I know that sounds boring, but you know, movies like Gladiator or Saving Private Ryan or Schindler's List, you know, that's all based upon history. A lot of them are very, very sad. Actually, Schindler's List is an excellent example of a sad movie, a really excellent movie, but very sad. Of course, I also like comedies. I like comedies. I like historical dramas. Dramatic movies sometimes I like, not too much. Sometimes I like horror movies, or not so much. But when I was younger, I'm not Brian. I'm Louise. Brian from Ecuador. Oh yeah. Hey, no worries. Brian, actually, I knew you were from Ecuador. Don't worry, I know you're from Ecuador. I actually know who you are. But I hope you're enjoying the class. I know this class the level is a little bit high, but I hope it's still useful for you. But anyhow, but yeah, I enjoy many different genres of movies. Anyhow, why do you like them? Okay, well, I like history a lot, so I like historical dramas because I want to see, I don't know, I just really like history. I like the setting. I want to learn something while I'm watching a movie, so I like historical dramas. Why do I like horror movies? Well, sometimes I like something suspenseful or thrilling or scary. Comedies, of course, I like them because I want to laugh sometimes. And yeah, anyhow, number 2 says, our reaction. How could these movies affect our body? That is an interesting question, and I'm not so sure. If we take a look at the first one is romance. How could these movies affect our body? How could romance movies affect your body? I don't know, actually. That's a really tough question. I guess if you're watching a good romantic movie, maybe you will feel more romantic and it will affect your body, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that means. Actually, I don't like romance movies. I usually find them kind of like annoying or disgusting, so I don't usually watch them. Anyhow, horror movies, how could that affect your body? That one's kind of an easy one. I think if you're watching a horror movie, if you're really involved, if it's a good movie, of course you're going to get kind of scared. And I think in that case, your body might become tense, right? Now, of course, this tense is not like verb tense. If you say, I am tense, that means you're kind of, you know, starting to freak out. You're like, oh my God, I'm getting tense watching this movie. Like, right? Oh, what was a scary horror movie that I liked? Oh, when I was younger, I really liked Saw. Did you see Saw? I saw Saw. Ooh, bad joke. But Saw, very scary. It made me feel very tense, right? Suspense. Again, I think suspense movies that are very thrilling can make you feel kind of tense and probably also get your brain working, right? Because you're going to be wondering like, oh, who did it? Who murdered the president or whatever? After that, we have comedy. Of course, if you're laughing, I guess the change in your body would be that your brain would probably be releasing serotonin or dopamine, which would make you feel good and make you feel kind of loose and, I don't know, happy. Disney movies. How do Disney movies affect your body? I don't know, maybe similar to comedy movies. I don't watch Disney movies. No, that's not true. I haven't watched a Disney movie for a long time, but my daughter, my older daughter, who's about 2, she likes Disney-related TV shows or movies, so we didn't watch a full movie together, but we watched like Minnie's Boutique. It's a TV show with Minnie, and she owns a store that sells bows. For me, it doesn't have an effect on my body. I don't really like it very much, but I watch it with my daughter to make her happy. Anyhow, and science fiction. Okay, so movies like The Matrix, which is, of course, an awesome movie, and I heard that they're going to be making some more Matrix movies, so that sounds really cool. I'm not sure how science fiction movies would affect our body. It's possible that they might also make you feel tense if there's a tense scene. Or, of course, get your brain working because, science fiction movies can be really interesting. So maybe you get really curious or think about technology and what the future could be like. My favorite science fiction, not movie actually, but series is on Netflix from the UK. I think it's produced in the UK, also a little bit in America. It's called Dark Mirror. And if you haven't watched Dark Mirror, do yourself a favor and watch Dark Mirror. It's Dark Mirror, not Mira. That's my daughter's name. But anyhow, Dark Mirror is really top quality TV. It's really, it can be really tense or suspenseful and very, very thought-provoking, which is a good term. Thought-provoking. If something that somebody said is thought-provoking, it makes you think a lot, right? And usually something that is thought-provoking is really interesting for you. So I think a lot of science fiction TV shows or movies can be really thought-provoking in that they will make you think about changes in technology, changes in culture, this kind of stuff. I highly recommend Black Mirror. Seriously, if you've never watched it before, some of the best TV episodes I've ever watched in my life are Black Mirror. You gotta watch it. Check it out. It is a must-see. Really excellent. Keep in mind, though, that a lot of the episodes do come from the UK, so people will be speaking using a British accent, so it can be a little bit hard to listen to, but it's still top quality stuff. Anyhow, guys, but let's move on to our actual listening. So I hope you guys have this here. I don't have the answers. Oops, I forgot to print off the answer sheet. Dun, dun, dun. So what we're going to do here, guys, is we're going to listen and try to fill in these blanks. I am also going to have to fill in the blanks. We're going to listen 2 or 3 times. Let's see how it goes. Hopefully it is interesting. Hopefully the computer will get restarted. It's not, so give me a second. Also, I need to grab a pen. So I've got to enter the password. Give me a moment. I hope this is loud enough. If this is not loud enough, please say something, and I will try to make it louder. Okay, let's see how this goes. Okay, everybody, listen up and try to fill in the blanks. Here we go.
Sad movies help reduce pain. This is BreakingNewsEnglish.com. Watching sad or traumatic movies can sometimes be just what the doctor orders. A new study reveals that watching distressing movies may boost our tolerance to pain. Researchers at Oxford University say that movies that get your emotions going can increase the amount of endorphins released by the brain. These are our bodies.
Okay, guys, sorry, it is not loud enough, so I need to plug in some speakers. So give me a second here. See if I can find the speakers and plug them in. Okay. Okay. This might be too loud. Okay, let me test it out. 1 second.
Sad movies movies help reduce.
Okay, excellent. All right, there we go. So let's restart, guys. 1 second. Okay, so sorry about that, guys. Let's restart. Here we go.
Sad movies help reduce pain. This is BreakingNewsEnglish.com. Watching sad or traumatic movies can sometimes be just what the doctor ordered. A new study reveals that watching distressing movies may boost our tolerance to pain. Researchers at Oxford University say that movies that get your emotions going can increase the amount of endorphins released by the brain. These are our body's natural painkillers, chemicals that make us feel better after physical or psychological pain. Dr. Robin Dunbar, a co-author of the study, explained that maybe the emotional distress you get from tragedy triggers the endorphin system. He added, the same areas in the brain that deal with physical pain also handle psychological pain. Dr. Dunbar and his colleagues conducted a series of
Okay, and for some reason it cut off. 1 second, guys. Sorry about that. Why did that happen? Okay, seems like I'm having some technical issues here. Let's try that again.
movies that get your emotional pain. Another group watched a documentary on the geology of
Oh,
our
God. Okay, guys, not sure why it stopped there. So maybe let's just restart from the beginning. Hopefully we don't have a technical issue again. Okay, let's just start from the beginning again. Here we go.
Sad movies help reduce pain. This is BreakingNewsEnglish.com. Watching sad or traumatic movies can sometimes be just what the doctor ordered. A new study reveals that watching distressing movies may boost our tolerance to pain. Researchers at Oxford University say that movies that get your emotions going can increase the amount of endorphins released by...
Okay, all right. Not working again. Okay, guys, now I'm playing this off of email. So maybe that's one of the reasons why. What I'm going to do is, like you guys can see on the sheet at the very bottom here, there is the link. So I'm going to type in the link here, and hopefully that will help us out. And then we won't have a problem. BreakingNews.com/1609/160924 painkillers dash I hope that's an L, HTML. Okay, let's see if that works. This might be a better source for playing it. Okay, guys, now this is interesting. On the actual page, they have different versions of this with different speeds. Slowest, slower, medium, faster, fastest. Okay, so I think when we're playing it off of here, it goes to 143. Okay, so actually they were playing the faster version of this. Okay, let's try out the faster version.
Sad movies help reduce pain.
Okay, no.
Sad movies help reduce pain.
Okay, yeah, it's the medium speed one. Okay, so let's do this again. Sorry about that, guys. Let's start from the top. Here we go.
This is BreakingNewsEnglish.com. Watching sad or traumatic movies can sometimes be just what the doctor ordered. A new study reveals that watching distressing movies may boost our tolerance to pain. Researchers at Oxford University say that movies that get your emotions going can increase the amount of endorphins released by the brain. These are our body's natural painkillers, chemicals that make us feel better after physical or psychological pain. Dr. Robin Dunbar, a co-author of the study, explained that maybe the emotional distress you get from tragedy triggers the endorphin system. He added, the same areas in the brain that deal with physical pain also handle psychological pain. Dr. Dunbar and his colleagues conducted a series of tests to determine the effect that tragic stories have on us. They invited 169 people to take part in the experiment. One group watched a traumatic drama about a disabled man battling homelessness, drug addiction, and alcoholism. Another group watched a documentary on the geology and archaeology of Britain. The results showed that, on average, the pain tolerance of those who watched the traumatic drama increased by 13.1%. This compared to an average decrease in pain threshold of 4.6% for those who watched the documentary. Dr. Dunbar suggested one reason we like watching sad movies is the natural high from the endorphins. This is Georgiana Hall reporting from South Korea.
Okay, guys. Now, honestly, that is pretty difficult, right? This person, now I've got it set at, I believe this is the medium North American English accent speed, but this is still pretty tough, right? So let's listen to this again. I did manage, of course, to fill this out, but obviously I should be able to. I'm an English speaker. It shouldn't be that hard for me. But anyhow, let's listen maybe 2 more times. Let's see how this goes. So let's listen one more time. Here we go.
Sad movies help reduce pain. This is BreakingNewsEnglish.com. Watching sad or traumatic movies can sometimes be just what the doctor ordered. A new study reveals that watching distressing movies may boost our tolerance to pain. Researchers at Oxford University say that movies that get your emotions going can increase the amount of endorphins released by the brain. These are our body's natural painkillers, chemicals that make us feel better after physical or psychological pain. Dr. Robin Dunbar, a co-author of the study, explained that maybe the emotional distress you get from tragedy triggers the endorphin system. He added, the same areas in the brain that deal with physical pain also handle psychological pain. Dr. Dunbar and his colleagues conducted a series of tests to determine the effect that tragic stories have on us. They invited 169 people to take part in the experiment. One group watched a traumatic drama about a disabled man battling homelessness, drug addiction, and alcoholism. Another group watched a documentary on the geology and archaeology of Britain. The results showed that, on average, the pain tolerance of those who watched the traumatic drama increased by 13.1%. This compared to an average decrease in pain threshold of 4.6% for those who watched the documentary. Dr. Dunbar suggested one reason we like watching sad movies is the natural high from the endorphins. This is Georgiana Hall reporting from South Korea.
Okay, guys, there we go. Now, actually, if you guys were able to understand all of this here, it's actually really quite interesting how maybe watching sad or traumatic movies can increase our pain tolerance. It's kind of cool. All right, but I know this is still really hard to listen to, so let's just listen one more time, then we'll finally take a look at these blanks here. Okay, so here we go again.
Sad movies help reduce pain. This is BreakingNewsEnglish.com. Watching sad or traumatic movies can sometimes be just what the doctor ordered. A new study reveals that watching distressing movies may boost our tolerance to pain. Researchers at Oxford University say that movies that get your emotions going can increase the amount of endorphins released by the brain. These are our body's natural painkillers, chemicals that make us feel better after physical or psychological pain. Dr. Robin Dunbar, a co-author of the study, explained that maybe the emotional distress you get from tragedy triggers the endorphin system. He added, the same areas in the brain that deal with physical pain also handle psychological pain. Dr. Dunbar and his colleagues conducted a series of tests to determine the effect that tragic stories have on us. They invited 169 people to take part in the experiment. One group watched a traumatic drama about a disabled man battling homelessness, drug addiction, and alcoholism. Another group watched a documentary on the geology and archaeology of Britain. The results showed that, on average, the pain tolerance of those who watched the traumatic drama increased by 13.1%. This compared to an average decrease in pain threshold of 4.6% for those who watched the documentary. Dr. Dunbar suggested one reason we like watching sad movies is the natural high from the endorphins. This is Georgiana Hall reporting from South Korea.
Okay, guys, pretty awesome. I hope you were able to get most of the blanks here filled in. Okay, sorry, we're having trouble playing this video. I think if you guys are watching on Facebook, you're probably having a problem playing this video, it says on the screen. But maybe one of the office administrators will help. Anyhow, guys, let's take a look. For you guys watching maybe on YouTube, let's take a look here and see how this goes. So let's fill in the blanks. It says, watching sad or traumatic movies can sometimes what? They can sometimes be just what the doctor ordered. So just what the doctor ordered just means like the doctor would suggest this, right? Eating an orange a day is just what the doctor ordered, right? Anyhow, a new study reveals that watching distressing movies may do something. Watching distressing movies may, and then we got this blank here. And actually there are 3 words here. First word is, this is my gesture hint for you guys. That looks really weird. It might do something with a B. Our T. It might lead to a sudden increase, so that word is boost. It might boost our tolerance to pain. So our tolerance to pain means our ability to handle pain, or our ability to tolerate pain, right? If it boosts our tolerance to deal with pain, that means we'd be better at dealing pain. Anyhow, researchers at Oxford University, of course, one of the world's best universities, say that movies that get your emotions going can increase blank endorphins released by the brain. Okay, now the answer here is the amount of endorphins released by the brain. Okay, awesome. These are our body's natural painkillers. Now, what are they? They're chemicals that make us feel better after physical or psychological pain. Dr. Robin Dunbar, something study. Now, Dr. Robin Dunbar, she is not the sole author. She's not the only person who wrote this. So she is a co-author. Okay. And I just realized watching the TV that you guys might not be able to see number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oh dear. Yeah, you guys can't see that, can you? Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so let me move this. Maybe. Let me erase this here, guys. Let me kind of restart, but I'll try to do this quickly. Sorry, I didn't realize that I was writing it too high on the board. So let me write it about here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we'll do 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 here. Okay, anyhow, number 1 was be just what the. Number 2 was boost our tolerance. Number 3 was the amount of. Number 4, chemicals that make. And then I think we were on to number 6. Okay, so number 6 was, okay. He added the same areas in the brain that deal with physical pain. Physical pain. Oh, wait. I skipped number 5. What am I doing here? Sorry, guys. Number 5 was a co-author. A co-author of the study. And then so number 6 was maybe the emotional distress you get from tragedy triggers the endorphin system. He added the same areas in the brain that deal with physical something psychological pain. But he's talking about physical pain also handle psychological pain. Okay, so let's move on finally to number 7, guys. Number 7 says, Dr. Dunbar and his colleagues conducted a series of something. A series of tests. Of course, we're talking about lab room tests, right? A series of tests to determine the effect that tragic stories have on us. They invited 169 people to do what? To take part in. So I think it's to take part in. To take part in the experiment. One group watched a traumatic drama about a disabled man battling homelessness, drug addiction, and alcoholism. Another group watched a documentary on something. On the. Now, I can see how this one might be really hard. A lot of people probably thought they heard geography, but it's actually not geography, it was geology. On the geology and archaeology of Britain. The drama did something. It increased something. Increased by, and then the number was probably hard to catch, but the number was 13.1. 13.1%. This compared to an average decrease in pain threshold of 4.6% for those who watched the documentary. Dr. Dunbar suggested he suggested one reason why. Just one reason we like watching sad movies is the something from the endorphins, the natural high. The natural high from the endorphins. Okay, guys, so now sorry about all the technical issues we've been having. We had technical issues with the sound, and now we seem to be having technical issues with the video for the Facebook people. Sorry about that, guys. Maybe it is playing. Maybe it's just a technical issue on my end. I don't know. But these are all the answers for the blanks here. Be just what the boost our tolerance, the amount of chemicals that make a co-author of the pain, also handle a series of tests to take part in on the geology, increased by 13.1%, suggested one reason, natural high from. Okay, so anyhow, we know that this whole listening activity is about pain and the body's response to watching traumatic movies. And I think the conclusion here basically is if you watch a traumatic, scary movie, it increases the amount of endorphins in your body. And endorphins are what help you deal with pain, whether that's physical or psychological pain, physical, psychological, emotional pain. And I think one of the doctor here, that talked about the reason why we watch this is probably because when we watch it and it releases endorphins in our body, it kind of gives us a natural high. It makes us feel kind of good, like we are high. being high is not generally considered to be a good thing. If you drink alcohol, you get drunk. If you do drugs, you get high. But this is a natural high, a high from our body, so it's not so bad like doing drugs, of course. Anyhow, this is really fascinating stuff, in my opinion. So I guess if you want to increase your pain tolerance and you want to release endorphins, I guess you should watch a scary movie or some kind of traumatic movie. It will make you more able to deal with pain. Who knew? That's really interesting. Okay, so turn to the back side or the next sheet. And here is where we have our questions. So we've got 10 comprehension questions, quite lengthy, and then we have discussion questions. So let's see how we do here. Let's do the comprehension questions, and then maybe we won't really have a lot of time for the discussion questions, but we'll try our best. So I'm just going to erase this stuff off the board. I hope you guys were able to see that and get the correct answers. But I'm going to try to write full sentence responses to these questions here for you guys. So taking a look at number 1, it said, who did the article say might order the watching of sad movies? What kind of occupation? Who might order the watching of sad movies? Well, the answer is at the very beginning, the first sentence. Watching sad or dramatic movies can sometimes be just what the doctor orders. So the doctor is our answer, basically. So, yeah, doctors might order the watching of sad movies because it increases our pain tolerance. So our answer, now if you just wanted to give like a short one-word answer, you could just write down doctors. Anyhow, number 2 guy says, what does a study say watching sad movies boosts our tolerance to? So when we're watching sad movies, what does it boost our tolerance to? It boosts our tolerance to, that thing starting with P, pretty easy answer, pain, right? So again, if you want to write a one-word answer, the answer would just be pain. But yeah, watching scary movies, they, or it, boosts our tolerance to pain. This is a study, well, the study says that anyhow. So yeah, just it. Number 3, guys, what part of the body releases endorphins? Where do endorphins come from? They come from not your head, but inside your head, they come from your brain. So our brain releases endorphins. Okay. All right, awesome. Who is Robin Dunbar? Now, that name kept popping up again and again and again. Robin Dunbar is a doctor who wrote or co-authored that study. So, who is Robin Dunbar? A doctor who co-authored. Now, like I said before, co-author means that there's more than one author, right? That means multiple people authored this book. Multiple people worked on this book, wrote parts for this book, right? A doctor who co-authored the study on watching traumatic movies and pain. Okay. Let's take a look at number 5. We have what might trigger the endorphin system? Okay. So our answer basically comes from the second half of the first paragraph when he explained that maybe the emotional distress you get from tragedy triggers the endorphin system. So what triggers the endorphin system? It would be the emotional distress. the emotional distress you, now this you doesn't mean you, it means you as in general you, right? You get from tragedy. So the emotional distress you get from tragedy is our answer, right? That may trigger the endorphin system. Okay, number 6, how many people took part in the experiment? Okay, I can kind of remember right off the top. I think it was 169. Yes, that's near the beginning of the second paragraph. It says they invited 169 people to take part in the experiment. So how many people took part in the experiment? 169 people took part in the experiment. It's quite a lot of people, actually. Okay, guys, so we got our comprehension questions 1 through 6 done. Let me please erase this here, and then we'll look at 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so I'll erase this. Okay, and let's move on to 7, 8, 9, 10, 9, and 10. Okay. What country's geology did a group of people watch a documentary on? So remember when they did this study, they had people either watch some really scary documentary about a homeless man who was dealing with alcoholism, drug abuse, etc., or the other group that was watching a documentary about the geology and archaeology of a certain country, right? So what country was that? Of course it was Britain, right? So what country's geology did a group of people watch a documentary on? They watched, so that group of people watched a documentary on the geology of Britain. Okay, so Britain is our basic answer. If you wanted to give a one-word answer, it would just be Britain. Okay, number 8. By how much did the pain tolerance of sad movie watchers increase? What was the percentage number increase? And of course, I can remember it was 13.1, but just to double check, because that was in our blank, the results showed that on average, the pain tolerance of those who watched the traumatic drama increased by 13.1%. By how much did... Okay, now I'm going to be lazy. I'm just going to give this answer as a one-word answer. 13.1%. What happened to the pain tolerance of those who watched the documentary? So people who watched the scary, kind of traumatic movie, it increased by 13.1. This compared to an average decrease in pain threshold of 4.6. So people who were watching the documentary, what happened to the pain it decreased, it lowered by, I think it was 4 point something, yeah, 4.6%. So I think that would mean like if you just watch a scary movie, your pain threshold, your tolerance for pain would be higher by 13.1, so you'd be better able to deal with pain. But if you just watched a documentary on something maybe kind of boring, well, not boring, geology and archaeology in Britain, it's not distressing, it's not freaking you out or anything, but that will actually have a negative effect on your pain tolerance. That will lead to a decrease of 4.6%. Yikes. So don't watch a documentary and then go play rugby or some kind of violent game. You might get in more pain than you would normally. Number 10, what natural thing did the doctor say we get from the endorphins? He says we get a natural high from the endorphins, right? So he said we get a natural high from the endorphins. Okay, guys, all right, so awesome. We finished all the comprehension questions. We've got a little bit of spare time left, so we could take a quick look at the discussion questions. Of course, this doesn't work very well because I'm just going to be giving my own example answer. You guys might have a completely different idea, and that's totally fine, right? But I just want to model how you could respond to these. So the discussion question, the first one says, what did you think when you read the headline? Okay, the headline was sad movies. Okay, so I thought we were going to just be talking about sad movies in general. I didn't think about the headline too much. I don't know. I just thought we were going to talk about sad movies. I didn't think about it too deeply. Okay, number 2, what springs to mind when you hear the word sad? Okay, so when you see that question, what springs to mind? Like, what pops into your head? What is the first image, idea, the first word that comes into your head when you hear this? So what springs to mind when you hear the word sad? When I hear the word sad, I think I just imagine, I just have an image of somebody crying. It's not an image of myself. I usually don't think about myself and how I look too much. Yeah, I guess, that's the only answer I can really give. When I hear the word sad, I just imagine somebody crying. It's possible I might relate it to a movie or a sad event in my life, but I don't know. Yeah, maybe like the death of my dog when I was younger. Yeah, that sometimes pops into my head when I hear the word sad. But usually I just imagine somebody crying. Nobody in particular, just whoever. What kind of movies do you like? All right, well, I already kind of answered this before, but historical dramas, sometimes horror, suspense, thrillers, etc., etc. So I'm not going to get into that deeply. What do you think about what you read? Oh, okay. Well, I already said what I think about this. I actually think this is really interesting. So, but I'm a real strong believer in how you can, by yourself, manipulate yourself to like kind of be stronger or to be more confident and to, how can I say, manipulate your own physiology or manipulate the chemicals within your body. I think it is possible to do that by doing certain exercises or by doing certain actions. And like yesterday, I highly recommended watching the TED Talks with Amy Cuddy. Eddie Cuddy, Body Language TED Talk. She talks a lot in her TED Talk presentation about how we can take some certain actions and that can actually change our mind to make ourselves more confident or more courageous and stuff like that. So I really do believe that seeing something, watching something, experiencing something can cause a chemical change in our body, and we can kind of use that knowledge to improve ourselves. I believe that's actually true. So I think this is really, really interesting and quite fascinating, to be honest. Number 5, what do you think of sad movies? It just depends on the sad movie. Some are good, some are bad. If we're talking about, a really serious historical drama like Schindler's List, of course, one of the, probably the best movie of all time. Incredibly sad movie, but it's a fantastic movie at the same time. So I think sad movies can be fantastic, but it just depends on, the movie and the acting. Number 6, how do different movies affect our feelings? Now, that was kind of related to the warm-up question, and I didn't take that very seriously. I guess I didn't think about it too much. Now, of course, this study was talking about how traumatic movies can increase our pain threshold. I think, on the other hand, like I said before, like watching comedy movies probably releases dopamine or serotonin in our brains, which makes us feel good, right? So I think comedies, they make us feel good. Probably romantic movies for a lot of women or guys that like romantic movies. Guys that like romantic movies? Yeah. Anyhow, stuff like that. Number 7, how good or bad are movies for us? Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, in general, of course, watching a lot of movies is a waste of time. However, I think if you're watching a highly rated movie, you can learn a lot about maybe history, through historical dramas, or by watching comedies, you can just, have a good time. I think movies can be good, but watching too many is probably a waste of time. Watching low-quality junk movies, obviously that's not good for you, right? Number 8, how much tolerance do you have for pain? I have no idea. I think average. 9, what do you do when you have pain? Usually I use bad language. I'll be honest here. I often swear a lot when I have pain, you know. Not really bad words. I usually say something like Jesus. I'm sorry if you're religious. If you feel bad about that, I'm sorry. But that's something my mom used to say, so I say it, blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, guys, sorry. It's about break time. We just almost finished this, but let's take a 10-minute break. After the break, maybe we could briefly take a look at this last question, and then we'll go over the breaking news English stuff, and we'll check it out. So I'll see you again in 10 minutes. back to PST Online. And right before the break, we were finishing off that listening topic, sad movies. We almost finished it. I got to the very last discussion question, so let's just take a look at that really briefly before we move on to our elective activity. And our last question here, number 10, is, will you now watch a sad movie to relieve your pain? No, I won't, because I don't have time to watch a sad movie. Anyhow, guys, so that was an interesting activity. What you could do, if you had trouble listening when I was actually playing the clip or whatever, like, of course, you could just rewatch this, or, you know, go to the link at the very bottom here, then you can actually listen to it, and there's some quiz questions. It's pretty good. So check that out if you have some time. Anyhow, guys, but let's move on to our elective activity, which is Breaking News English. All right, awesome. And it says here, we're talking about new Netflix subscribers surge during pandemic. Now, this is just very obvious. You know, we're going through a pandemic right now with the coronavirus. And of course, there's been an increase in the number of people who are probably subscribing to Netflix and watching Netflix because we have a lot of extra time right now. I am also subscribed to Netflix, but I actually don't watch it too much because I don't seem to be able to really watch anything for a certain amount of time before one of my kids is, you know, causing trouble and I have to deal with them. But what we're supposed to do here, guys, is read over this article here, which is pretty short, and then go through some of this stuff here. We're not going to go through everything here because some of it would be very boring to do online, but we'll try this out. So let's read the article. The article is dated the 25th of April 2020. So, you know, a few months ago, kind of in the middle of this pandemic. Well, actually, you shouldn't say the middle because we don't know where we are with this pandemic. But Canada's doing okay with the pandemic. So maybe for Canada, that was kind of the middle or midpoint. But anyhow, so I'm going to read this. Maybe it'd be a good idea for you guys to read along with me. And let's try this out. So it says, Netflix has more than doubled the number of new subscribers it thought it would get this year. Netflix makes movies and TV shows and provides a service for subscribers to watch these online. The streaming giant said 15.77 million new subscribers signed up for its service in the past 3 months. It expected an increase of around half this number. The doubling of subscriptions is due to the coronavirus pandemic. Millions of people are staying at home and are using their free time by watching films and TV programs. Netflix is now one of the world's most valuable companies. It is worth more than the oil giant ExxonMobil. Financial analysts say its value is around $196 billion. So that's a lot of money, right? And I'm sure you guys might be familiar with ExxonMobil, the oil company. Is a huge, huge energy company. So the fact that Netflix is maybe more valuable or worth more than ExxonMobil is a huge deal. But then again, as you guys probably know, the price of oil is almost at a historical low when adjusted for inflation. So oil companies right now are not doing that well. But who knows, a couple of years from now when the price of oil goes back up, maybe ExxonMobil will be worth more than Netflix. And who knows, maybe when or if this pandemic ends, maybe less people will subscribe to Netflix or cancel their subscription anyhow. So the last paragraph here says, a Netflix official said the surge in membership numbers was probably temporary. The rate of new memberships would probably go down and return to normal after lockdowns end. The company said, we expect viewing to decline and membership growth to slow down as home confinement ends, which we hope is soon. It added, the coronavirus has reached every corner of the world, and in the absence of a widespread treatment or vaccine, no one knows how or when this terrible crisis will end. we are aware that we are fortunate to have a service that is even more meaningful to people confined at home. The company hopes to start producing more news shows in the near future. All right, guys, so I think this article here just kind of makes obvious sense to many of us who are, experiencing the coronavirus. Well, basically everybody is, because more of us are spending a lot more time at home. So a lot of us are going to sign up for a membership with Netflix or Amazon Prime or Disney Plus or one of these subscription-based TV streaming programs, right? And Netflix is obviously the biggest and most popular one, although I think Disney is gaining a lot of members as well. But anyhow, so guys, pretty interesting article. There's some difficult vocab here, but not too hard. I guess you guys were probably wondering about confinement and confine. Slightly useful term, not terribly useful, but to confine something or someone means to keep something or someone in a small area, right? So in late March and April, actually, my family and we were confined at home. We didn't take our daughter outside of our apartment complex. That sounds crazy, right? But we didn't because we were pretty freaked out because of the coronavirus. We would only take her to a shared patio on a different floor. We didn't take her outside to go on an actual walk. And you might be thinking, oh my God, that's crazy. But, at the time, people were really freaking out. And actually close to our apartment building, there is a nursing home for old people. And there was a huge, and this is just like less than 1 block away, a couple of buildings away from our apartment building. So actually, if we're on our balcony, we can see this nursing home, this retirement home for elderly people, of course. And there was a coronavirus outbreak there, and more than 60 people got infected, and 12 people died. So because that place is really close to us, it really, really freaked us out because we could see that health officials had set up a tent outside of the nursing home, and there were doctors and nurses going inside the nursing home, but they were wearing hazmat suits, like, the suits that cover the whole body and prevent infection. So it just seemed really serious to us at the time. Anyhow, guys, now after this, there's a writing portion. It says, watching movies and TV shows is the best thing to do during lockdown. Discuss. Okay. All right, so if we were having a regular class, maybe I would give you guys 10 minutes and you guys would write down what you think about that statement. Watching movies and TV shows is the best thing to do during lockdown. Obviously, I'm not going to write my example here. I think that would take too much time and I wouldn't be able to do the other things, but I could give you my own personal opinion about the statement. Watching movies and TV shows is the best thing to do during lockdown. Obviously, my answer would be no, this is not the best thing to do during the lockdown. Unfortunately, though, if you are quarantined, if you are on lockdown, if you're confined at home, if you don't have kids, if you're by yourself, I think, of course, watching movies and TV shows is totally fine. You need some entertainment. You need to take your mind off of your troubles and the coronavirus and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's good to watch that, but not too much, right? Not excessively. It's probably a good idea to go to Udemy or, I don't know, Global College or whatever and sign up for an online course or watch YouTube videos and try to learn about something new, whether that's a programming language or maybe studying a different foreign language, or as an ESL student, checking out and studying by yourself at home online. I think that would be a better use of your time. But yeah, I think watching movies and TV shows is all right. Just don't do it excessively, right? And I keep using that word excessive and excessively, but excessive, which is the adjective form, it just means more than enough, too much, right? We shouldn't be playing video games or watching movies excessively. That's not good. Of course, as a parent, as a father for a 2-year-old daughter, I am concerned about the amount of TV that my daughter watches. It's been unavoidable during this pandemic that my daughter will be watching more TV than usual because we can't take her out as often as we used to. We go out much more often now, but we're still pretty careful. So yeah, I don't think, especially for kids, I don't think watching too much TV is a good thing. They pick up a lot of weird words and weird language and sometimes, bad behavior. So anyhow, no, it's not the best use of your time. It's not the best thing to do during lockdown. I think you should try to learn something or try to study. Anyhow, now for the chat part here, it says talk about these words from the article. So these words here, they're not hard words. They just want you to take a look at these words and try to talk about them. So the first word is Netflix. So what do you think about when you hear the word Netflix? For me, I think, pretty good subscription service, right? And quite cheap. I think in Canada it's about $11. How much do I pay for it? Actually, I can't remember. Originally when I signed up for it, I think it was about $10. Now I think it's like 11 or 12 bucks. But actually, I think that's a really fantastic deal. I think Netflix is a good service, and I think a lot of the TV shows and movies they produce are the movies are pretty good, not great. The TV shows can be really good. I recently started watching one. It's actually not an English one. It's from Germany. It's called Dark. So I have to watch it using English subtitles, but it's really, really excellent. So I think a lot of the TV shows that Netflix helps to produce are pretty high quality, and I think Netflix is a good service. But do I think it's some kind of god? No, of course it's not some kind of god. Anyhow, after that we have the term doubled. Now, of course, doubled, if something doubles, it increases in size by 2, right? Basically, double or doubled just means multiplied by 2. Or, well, actually, it's better to write 2 times. 2 times, right? What do I think about the word doubled? I don't know. I guess that's a good thing. If the amount of money I had doubled, hooray, good for me, right? Next term here is subscribers. So a subscriber is somebody who subscribes to something that gets, so for example, a Netflix subscriber. You want the Netflix service, so you subscribe to them, you pay them the fee, and you get to use Netflix, right? I am also a subscriber to the New York Times magazine, or not magazine, sorry, newspaper, the online version anyhow. But that's all I am a subscriber to. You could say you're a subscriber to a certain telecommunications company with your subscriber or membership. Either one is okay. In a lot of cases, subscriber and member are pretty much interchangeable. You could use either one, but I subscribe to Netflix, I've subscribed to the New York Times online version. Maybe you guys subscribe to some kind of newspaper or news source. Well, not actually newspaper. Nobody reads a newspaper, but maybe an online newspaper. And then, next word is online. When I think of online, I just think of the internet. We do so much of our work or research or whatever online these days. After that, we have 3 months. Talk about these words from the article. 3 months. Yeah, the past 3 months have been not so great for many of us, including myself. However, my younger daughter was born in the last 3 months, so it was a very happy occasion, of course. But she's born during the age of the coronavirus, so that's kind of weird. But I'm sure we'll get over this. It'll get better. And next term we have is films. What do I think about films? Netflix films are pretty good, not great. What else can I say about films? I think Schindler's List is probably the best movie ever. And what else? Shawshank Redemption. If you haven't watched those movies, check them out. I also like a Korean movie called Memories of Murder. It's made by, I think, the same guy who made Parasite. Parasite, really awesome movie, but I think Memories of Murder is even better. I can't remember the Korean title for it. Synonym Match. Anyhow, my pronunciation in Korean is getting really bad. Moving on to next term, valuable. Valuable is a really good adjective, right? If you say something is valuable, it has a lot of value for you. It's important for you, right? Now, for all of us, our free time is very valuable, right? Especially if we're working hard, you don't have a lot of free time, so your free time is very valuable. But also money is valuable. We all need money to survive, right? But maybe something that you own personally at home is valuable to you, right? Maybe something that your father or mother gave to you, maybe it's very valuable. I'm trying to think of, now of course, yeah, standard answers are like, my family is valuable to me. Of course, right? That goes without saying. I'm trying to think of what else is valuable to me. This is a really boring example, but I really like my coffee table at home. It's very valuable to me, although it was only like $50, but it's my favorite coffee table ever. So it has a personal value for me. Next term here is oil. Now, when I think of oil, I usually think of just fuel. Black oil, from the Middle East or from the tar sands of Alberta. Oil is essential for all of us, although the oil industry and the price of oil is very low. Oil industry not doing very well these days, but I'm sure the price will eventually start going back up and a lot of oil companies will recover. I guess oil could also be related to cooking oil, sunflower, canola, corn oil, that kind of stuff. I think that stuff is not very good for people. Probably shouldn't be consuming it. Anyhow, value as opposed to valuable. Value is a useful word, right? What is the value of? We use this a lot in questions, right? We often ask the question, what is the value of something, right? What is the value of a new car, right? Well, a new car can help you get from point A to point B, yada yada. Or what is the value of a BMW, something like that. So anyhow, value is a useful word. After that, we have surge. And surge always means kind of something similar to boost, B-O-O-S-T. A surge means a sudden increase in something. So in this Netflix article, Netflix has experienced a surge in subscribers, right? So many people have subscribed recently, so they've experienced a doubling, or not a doubling actually, but they experienced a boost in subscribers. Surge is not a bad word. We don't use it too much, but maybe like if somebody stabs you or you get hurt, you could say, I felt a surge of pain, so a sudden increase in pain. Or you watch a sad movie, you feel a sudden surge of emotions, right? Or, your dog dies, you get a surge of tears, right? A sudden increase in something. After that, we have the word membership. I'm not really a membership or subscriber kind of guy. I don't like to subscribe to too many things, but I am a subscriber to Netflix, like I said before, and the New York Times, but that's about it. I don't have a membership in any kind of group, really. I guess I should become like a member of some kind of sports group, but anyhow. After that, we have lockdown. So, of course, lockdown is similar to quarantine, right? If you are in quarantine or in lockdown, you are confined at home. You must stay home. You can only go out if you're going to the pharmacy or going to the grocery store. Unless you are an essential worker, then of course you are allowed to go to work, but you have to be careful, right? After that, we have free time. In the past, before the coronavirus got started, I didn't have a lot of free time. Now I have much more free time. Probably not using it all that effectively, but spending a lot of time with my family is a good thing, so that's good. After that, we have the word streaming. We all know that streaming, you stream maybe something from your phone to the TV. You stream Netflix. In my case, I stream Netflix from my phone to the TV through a Chromecast. Anyhow, crisis. Oh, crisis is a really good word. A crisis is a bad situation, right? Where people are really extremely worried about something or something really terrible is happening. So, of course, this whole pandemic is a crisis, of course. It's a world health crisis, the COVID-19 crisis. Or There was a conflict, I think in the Himalayas between China and India about 2 weeks ago where a bunch of soldiers, Indian soldiers, fought Chinese soldiers, and I think 20 Indian soldiers were murdered or killed by Chinese soldiers, and some Chinese soldiers were dead. I'm not taking sides in this. I don't know who's right and who's wrong. But anyhow, that was an international crisis, right? Next term we have here is fortunate. Fortunate is a good word. If you say, I am fortunate, or I had some good fortune, well, that's what it means basically. If you say, I am fortunate, it means you had some good fortune. You are lucky, right? I am fortunate because I am married, right? So I'm so lucky to be married, for example. That's what all married people say. We're all lucky to be married. But yeah, I'm fortunate to have 2 healthy kids who are relatively happy. And I'm sure you guys are fortunate for something in your life. So when you talk about being fortunate, usually you can just say, I am fortunate. I am lucky. I've had good luck, right? Or you can explain, why are you fortunate? I am fortunate because I have this, or I have that, or I've experienced this or that. And last term here is confined, which we already talked about. When you are confined, you are quarantined, you are locked down, you can only stay in a certain place. Okay, like prisoners are confined in prison, right? Okay guys, now we have some true false questions here, so let's take a look at these ones and just kind of run through them. It says the number of Netflix subscribers trebled in the past 3 months. Okay. Now, we know the number of Netflix subscribers has surged in the past 3 months, that it's dramatically increased by 15.77 million people. But trebled usually means increased by a greater amount than surge. Treble can mean to increase by 3 times. So is this answer correct? No, this is false. We cannot say that this is true, right? So yeah. I know that's weird because I actually just double checked by looking at the answer key. But yes, it's not true. It did not treble. It increased, or it surged by 15.77, which is awesome, but it did not treble. B, Netflix makes and streams TV shows. Is this true or is this false? What does Netflix actually do? This answer, of course, is true. Netflix does stream TV shows, but Netflix also makes a lot of TV shows. So both statements are true. We'll go with true. C, Netflix expected just a quarter of the subscribers that it got. Okay, now actually what I remember from the article is that they expected about half of the new subscribers, but let's just double check here to make sure. More than double the number of new subscribers it thought it would get this year. Shows provide service. The streaming giant said. It expected an increase of around half this number. So C, Netflix expected just a quarter of the subscribers it got. No, this is actually not true. It expected about half the number, not a quarter, because a quarter would be about 1/4 or 25%. So this is actually false. Okay, moving on to D. The oil giant ExxonMobil is worth more than Netflix. Now, from what I remember, no, this is actually not true. Netflix is the other way around. Netflix is worth more than ExxonMobil. So this is false, but let's double check the article. So the second to last sentence, or maybe third to last sentence in the first paragraph said, Netflix is now one of the world's most valuable companies. It is worth more than the oil giant ExxonMobil. So it's worth more than, right? Financial analysts say its value is around 196 billion. So yeah, the answer to D is false because the oil giant ExxonMobil is not worth more than Netflix. Netflix is worth more than them. So good for Netflix. Anyhow, E. Netflix thinks the increase in membership will be permanent, right? So we know if we describe something as being permanent, it means like everlasting, will last forever. Permanent is the opposite of what? What is the opposite of permanent? opposite of permanent is a term that starts with T, and that is temporary, right? If something is temporary, it lasts just for, a certain amount of time and then it ends, right? Whereas if something is permanent, it lasts forever. So Netflix thinks the growth in membership will, Netflix thinks the increase in membership will be permanent. My answer off the bat would be false. I don't think they said this, but let's double check. So first sentence in the second paragraph, guys. A Netflix official said the surge in membership numbers was probably temporary. Okay, so they're saying temporary. So temporary is opposite of permanent. So obviously the answer here is false because it will not be permanent, it's just temporary. Okay, let's take a look at F. Netflix thinks the growth in membership will return to normal levels. Okay, I think this is true. However, let's double check. So again, second paragraph, the rate of new memberships would probably go down and return to normal after lockdowns end. Okay, so yeah, the answer here is definitely true. They think it will return to normal levels. Okay, G, Netflix said coronavirus reached most corners of the world. So did Netflix say that coronavirus has reached most corners of the world? Basically, that would mean go around the entire world. Let's see here. Go back to the second paragraph. It said, the company said, we expect viewing to decline and membership growth to slow down as home confinement ends, which we hope is soon. It added, the coronavirus has reached every corner of the world, and in the absence of a widespread treatment or vaccine, no one knows how or when this terrible crisis will end. So, did Netflix say coronavirus reached the most corners of the world? Yes, they did. The answer here is true. Okay, let's take a look at our last one, guys. H, Netflix said it hopes to make more new shows soon. So again, take a look back at the second paragraph. I think this is last sentence. The company hopes to start producing more new shows in the near future. And of course, don't confuse that with news shows. It's new shows. So yeah, this is true. They do hope to make more new shows sometime soon. Okay, guys, so we got our true-false section done. We got the answers. Yes. If you want to double check those answers, of course, there is an answer key on the second page at the bottom, but why cheat when, you should try this first and then check it out afterwards. Anyhow, guys, let's try out our synonym match, right? Now, don't confuse synonym with cinnamon, right? Cinnamon is pretty sweet, like cinnamon buns. Synonyms are just words of a similar meaning. And the spelling is pretty different. Anyhow, bad jokes. All right, so let's do this together. Actually, I'm going to write this on the board and do the matching with you guys. Okay, so synonym match. And so we got 1 through 10. Okay, 1, doubled, 2, movies, 3, expected, 4, we've got due to, 5, value, 6, surge, 7, decline, 8, we've got reached, and 9, we've got crisis, and 10, we have producing. Okay. Now on the other side here, A through J, we've got, for A, we've got increase. Okay, so that's pretty easy. B, we have because of. C, we've got making. And that's kind of messy, sorry about that. D, we've got believed. E, extended. F, No, don't need that. F, we've got films. G, worth. H, emergency. And then I, increased twofold. And lastly, J is go down. Okay, guys, so because this is synonym match, right? We're going to be matching these terms on the left with their synonym on the right. And of course, remember, a synonym is a word of a similar meaning. It doesn't have to have the exact same meaning, just a similar meaning. So let's take a look, guys. Doubled. What would be the synonym on the right-hand side? Now, if you think it's increased, that's not actually a bad guess, because doubled does mean increase, but it means increase specifically by 2 times. So let's look on further, because it's not because of or making believe, extended films, worth, emergency, but of course, number 1 connects to I, because I is increased twofold, increased by 2 times. So that is our answer for double. Okay, number 2, we've got movies. What is another term for movie? What is a synonym for movie? Obviously, the answer here is pretty easy. Our synonym is F, films. Awesome. Now, next term here, this one is going to be a little bit hard. Expected. Now, is expected increase or because of or making or believed? Maybe. Extended or film? Nope. Worth, emergency, increase twofold? Nope. Go down? Of course, no. It is most similar to believed, right? We expected him to come. We believed he would come. So 3 is D. Okay, 4 we have due to, right? Due to something. Due to the rain, I'm not going to go out for a walk today. Because of the rain, I'm not going to go out for a walk today. So of course, due to is connected to B, because of. Okay, 5, value. Value is how much something means to you, what monetary value you might place on it. So of course, value is pretty simple. That is connected to G, to worth. All right. Now remember, surge, we already talked about this before. Surge is like a sudden increase, a boost in something. So the answer for this one is pretty simple. Of course, it is A, increase. All right. And then we have decline. So decline can mean a decrease or to reject something. I declined his offer to go to the coffee shop due to the fact that I don't like spending time with him, right? But this decline we're talking about here is a decrease in something. So do we have decrease? No, we don't have decrease, but we have go down. So there's our answer. Decline can mean J, go down. Then we have reached, right? Reach something. I'm going to reach for it. So this one you guys might have more trouble with. Reach is actually similar or a synonym of extended, because to extend something means to like maybe increase the length of something or to reach out, right? Anyhow, crisis, of course, is H, which is emergency, and by process of elimination, and because it's easy, produce and producing is similar to make something, right? Who produces something? Netflix produces or makes TV shows and movies, right? GM makes or produces cars and trucks. Samsung makes and produces computers and cell phones. Apple produces smartphones and yada yada, right? Okay, guys, so pretty good. Got our synonym match done. Next part is a discussion part. Now, the discussion is pretty awesome, but it's kind of hard to do. I think what we'll do, guys, is let's skip the discussion portion for right now. I just don't think we have enough time, but maybe we can come back to it later. But the phrase match on the back, this is pretty good. Now, actually, I wish I could write this out on the board as well. But, you know, taking a look at the synonym match here is probably pretty hard for you guys to see this. But I did go over the answers, so you should be okay. Let's just go over this orally. Let's take a look here. Phrase match. So you want to match the one on the left with the one on the right. It says, number 1, Netflix has more than doubled the what? Is more than doubled the number of new subscribers. So our answer for number 1 would be F, right? Number 2, in the past. In the past what? In the past 3 months was what they talked about in the article, right? It is expected to increase of, it expected an increase of around, and of course Netflix expected an increase not in 15.77 million people, but they expected an increase of around half of this number, so A. 4, using their free time by watching films. J. A lot of people during the quarantine are using their free time by watching films. F. Financial analysts say its value is I. Around 196 billion, making Netflix one of the world's largest corporations. Congratulations, Netflix. 6. The surge in, the increase in what? Membership. Yeah, the surge in membership, because they talked about the surge in membership or subscribers to Netflix. Number 7, return to normal after lockdowns end. So our answer would be H. Okay. Number 8, we expect viewing. Okay, after that, we expect viewing to decline, right? So our answer would be E, after the lockdowns end. The absence of a widespread treatment or vaccine, G. And lastly, number 10, in the near B, future. And in the near future is a good expression if you're saying like, it's not a specific amount of time. Like if you say, I'm going to start studying French in the near future. The near future could mean like any time between tomorrow or next week to 3 months from now, right? Is not a specific amount of time. So anyhow, yeah. So near future, kind of a useful term. Okay, guys. Now after that, we have discussion for student B. We also have spelling. Netflix has more than doubled the number. New subscribers, I think. The streaming giant. Actually, this is not bad. Yeah, maybe let's do this. This is actually not too bad. So I'll erase this stuff off the board. We'll go over this one, guys, and if we still have time, we'll take a brief look at those questions. So let me erase this here. The spelling one, like usually I think spelling is not, no, spelling is important when you are writing an email, for example. But there are so many applications now that help to correct your spelling that it's not as important as it used to be. But I think through this, we could take a look at some vocab anyhow. So let's do a quick look at this. So number 1, guys, Netflix has more than something, the number. This one here is obviously double the number. Now, number 2, this one looks a hell of a lot harder. New CSSSRRBUEBI. I think they're talking, actually that's hard. Is that, I think it's subscribers. Yeah, it's subscribers. Okay, yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have gotten confused. Subscribers, because we got our 3 S's, SSS, we have our 1 C, we have our 2 R's, yeah, so subscribers. Okay, so subscribers is number 2. Number 3, the streaming TGAIN. You might be thinking, wow, what the hell is that, right? but actually they're saying the streaming giant. And giant, well, giant just means really, really big, or a giant is a really big person. But when we talk about large corporations like Netflix, we can say, you know, Netflix is a giant corporation, or Netflix is a streaming giant, just like Sony is a gaming giant, Toyota is a car manufacturing giant, Samsung is a smartphone making giant, Embraer in Brazil is a aviation giant, right? They make a lot of planes. Actually, Embraer's main competitor is here in Canada. Of course, that is Bombardier, but I'm kind of ashamed to say Bombardier is from Canada because I don't think they make good planes. But anyhow, number 4, guys, says due to the corona EMDCPNIA. I think they're talking about epidemic, right? Epidemic. Wait a second. What am I talking about here? Is this right? No. Am I thinking? Maybe I got this wrong. I do have this wrong. What am I talking about? Sorry guys, that is terribly embarrassing. It's not epidemic, it's pandemic. Blech. Okay, having a mental breakdown, right? Pandemic. But epidemic and pandemic do have a similar meaning, like a fast-spreading infectious disease, right? Okay, the world's most valuable companies. Of course, this one is valuable. Valuable companies. So that one is pretty easy to spot. Number 6, financial analysts. What is it? Analysts, right? Analysts. Okay, 7. What do we got? The something in membership. Okay, sudden big increase. Of course, we're talking about surge. Okay, good. And number 8, probably PTAOEYMRR. Wow. Actually, I gotta think about this one, guys. I'm not sure. PTAMMR. PTAOEYMRR. Is not. Okay, I am not sure right now. But give me a moment here. I don't want to cheat and look at the correct answer. PTAOE. I'm really bad with this kind of stuff. Like actually, like unless I can see it really quickly, it's kind of tough for me. Treatment after lockdowns. Sorry guys, give me some time. I don't know. Okay, actually I'm gonna skip number 8. Hopefully we'll come back to that one after. But number 9, we expect viewing to, liquidine. This is actually decline. Decrease. Okay, we'll continue with 10, 11, and 12. Treatment or CEVANIC. Of course, they're talking about a vaccine, right? Vaccine is the answer for number 10. Number 11, when this terrible something will end. That one is pretty easy for me. It is crisis. And lastly, number 12. Number 12, we are something. We are fortunate. We are fortunate. Okay, guys, so we got all of them except for number 8. That one is still just confusing the hell out of me. Why is this so confusing? I'm taking a look quickly through our list of vocab and trying to find a word that would be similar. Yeah, man. Wow. Okay. PTAOEYMRR. So Y, M, and 2 R's. TV shows provide subscribers to watch these online. Streaming giants said. An increase of around half this number. The doubling of subscriptions is due to the coronavirus pandemic. Millions of people are staying at home and are using their free time by watching films and TV programs. Netflix is now one of the world's most valuable companies, worth more than the oil giant ExxonMobil. Financial analyst, yada. Said the surge in. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The answer, sorry guys, is the opposite of permanent. The answer is temporary. I don't know why. I just kind of work that out in my brain. Yikes. Okay. Anyhow, but we got it done, guys. We got the spelling section done. There are sections that we skipped. The discussion is good if you do have a partner. One of you takes student A, the other person takes student B. Question and answer each other back and forth. It's pretty good. You also have the option of doing the role play here. So if you could print it off and cut these out, that would be pretty awesome. Like role play character A, you think movies are the best things to watch on TV during lockdown. Tell the others 3 reasons why. Tell them what is wrong with their shows. Also, tell the others which is the least useful of these and why. Chat shows, sport, or cooking shows. So that's kind of fun. If you have role A, then you got to think of some reasons why watching movies is a good use of time, why it's better than TV. Or role B, chat shows. You think chat shows are the best things to watch on TV during lockdown. Tell the others 3 reasons why, etc., etc. Or you have role C, sport. You think sport is the best thing to watch on TV during lockdown. Give 3 reasons. So kind of a similar thing, except you're talking about sport. But actually, the person who has role C, this is not that great because like a lot of sports aren't really being played right now. I do think soccer kind of got restarted in Europe, and maybe there's some things going on in North America, but there's not a lot of sports going on right now. So actually, I think sports is probably the worst one to watch during a lockdown because it's just not really happening right now. And role D, cooking shows. You think cooking shows are the best thing to watch on TV during lockdown. Maybe that's true, because at least if you're watching a cooking show, you can kind of learn a new skill, you know, learn how to cook something better than before. Probably cooking shows is the best. And the last section here is speaking about TV shows. Rank these with your partner, put the best at the top, change partners often, and share your rankings. Of course, if you have somebody at home you could do this with, again, this is a good idea. So you've got movies, news, sports, cartoons, comedies, gardening shows, right? Cooking shows, and chat shows. So you should rank these according to what you think are the most interesting, but you're gonna have to compromise with your partner if they don't agree with you, but you'll go through number 1 to number 8, right? I would say gardening shows, obviously at the bottom. Chat shows, yeah, I also don't think those are very useful, but for me, probably the news is the most important, followed by movies. But I'm going to stop it there for today, guys. Like I said, we took a look at a lot of stuff today, especially in the first class. So if you guys are not so good or familiar with reported speech, please read through that information again, go through it, try out the exercises. Also, with the listening, if you weren't able to catch everything, follow that link on the page. Go to the actual site, listen to it, and you can take some quizzes there. It's pretty useful. And anyhow, yeah, that's about it for today. Remember, you do have homework that you should submit tomorrow before class at 10 o'clock. And that homework was the TED Talks listening stuff. So try it out. Tomorrow we'll be doing some review of this week's material and doing a fun elective, and then you guys will have a quiz. So anyhow, good luck with everything, guys. Hope you have a good day, and I will see you again tomorrow.